All right, everyone, come on in and welcome. So I want to open up the space and clear a little bit, set the intentions. We're going to have nice conversation for you this afternoon. So as you're coming in, taking a deep breath, and then Zach, whenever you're ready, you can request to join the chat. So taking a breath, receiving some sage. Yes. And so my guest is joining our platform now. All right. Ding, ding, ding.
Here we are.
Here we are. Let me open up the space with a little clearing. Awesome. Well, it is so good to be here. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So I am here tonight with my amazing friend that I met last 2 years ago at a mastermind container. It was 8 of us, and Zach was there, and we've got to connect. And so at this point, I consider Zach as my soul brother, my conscious brother who's walking in the path of evolution and sacred sexuality and conscious relationships. And he's been getting into coaching work with men, so he's supporting the masculine side of evolution. So that's super amazing. And so today we just felt inspired to come on and chat with you guys and just share some perspective. So this is super random. And so I'm going to have Zach introduce himself, anything that he wants to say before we go into our little flow today.
Yeah, perfect. Hello, thank you. You pretty much hit it on the head. I am a men's work and relationship coach, and very invested in the evolution of like people's understandings of masculine and feminine energy and how to be in more conscious relationships and attract more aligned people into your life.
Yes. Yeah. It's a beautiful new thing for a lot of people these days. I feel like the all together are going through transformation as people are beginning to heal and awaken and not want to repeat old patterns. You know, we're learning to heal old patterns so that we can really learn to co-create these new beautiful relationships. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask you that first question that we're going to open with, and then we kind of flow from there. Is that good?
Absolutely.
Cool. So, Zach, in your perspective, what does it mean to be a conscious masculine man?
So I know that you appreciate this model as well, David Data's model, but I think it is the best way to describe this, which is that there's sort of like 3 stages of the masculine's development. The first is where we are like the ultra machismo man who only operates from the masculine, Mr. Breadwinner, Mr. Big Man in the room, and doesn't know really necessarily how to connect with women. And then that sort of second stage of evolution is when you're a bit like you've shifted the pendulum and now you're kind of solely in that feminine and you are maybe overly accommodating, but you're really sensitive and you understand emotions and embrace and sensuality, and you have that component down. And then something happens when you find the congruence that like your essence is as a man, where you've integrated both components and you can now operate based on whatever the present moment is asking from you or for you. Mm-hmm. And whether that be like in or outside the bedroom, you are able to sense properly and also be directive.
Mm-hmm. And so what Zach was just describing, he was talking about the 3 stages of conscious masculine evolution that David Dieta wrote in his Intimate Communion book. And so he talks about these different stages that we go through and how the more we integrate our pure essence of our own unique divine feminine and masculine balance, the more harmonious we can be in those dynamics, right? And so, yeah, I love that.
Because then what gets to happen is like in a relationship with 2 integrated people, you get the opportunity to like be in creation and expression and expansion rather than like necessity. Whereas like a lot of us operate from like codependent spaces, or like I need you to fill the gap where I can't reach. When you have like a conscious man in a relationship, there are no gaps to fill. There's only like spaces to go and expansion to feel and love to give.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. And so as you were saying that, what I was thinking for me is being able to really connect to my own masculine. And in times when I want to lead and I want to direct, to really step into that role, and having a partner by me who can see that creative inspiration within me to go into that masculine direction. And so for him to surrender into his feminine so that I can lead him, right? Versus like the feminine needing to always be in her feminine and just always in that surrendered state. Like that's cool too, but like there's so much more fun when you can like bring that edge out a little bit and surprise your masculine partner, because men like to be led as well.
We do.
Yeah.
Even
Awesome.
as like a meta example, like in the context of this interview, like I don't mind surrendering to you being the one asking the questions on your profile. Like, you know, I'm fine to let you lead the way, but I'm also fine to like step in. Right?
Yeah.
I just want to like dance with you here. And so it makes it more fun.
Absolutely. Please feel free to step in anytime. Always welcome. And so kind of now leading into relationships and deeper relationships. So looking at sacred sexuality. So in your perspective, what is sacred sexuality?
Sacred sexuality to me is when you bring in a more intentional and almost like divine approach to the bedroom. And the word that comes up for me is the word slowness. Because that, I feel like my experience has been in the world that it's like a rapid, there's a quickness, and there's always a goal of like ejaculation when it comes to sex. It's like, let's get there and let's get off. And sacred sexuality is when you essentially eliminate goals, eliminate a destination of an act together, of being intimate together. So yeah, this is something I've been exploring and embracing and expressing over the past year and a half. And it has like been an intensely healing space for me and my partner. And that's one of the key things I think about sacred sexuality as well, is if you want a pathway into healing some of the relationship wounds you had, a container like that, like a sacred sexuality will do it.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to hear, and maybe for people that will be listening, in your experience before and after, what was your relationship like, and how is your sexuality different versus how you've been embodying as of late?
Yeah, so probably relatively common, but I'm 31 now. In my 20s, I very often put on the mask of big macho man, alluring, charming man. Like, let me give you this great experience, and I'm going to pleasure you, and it's going to be so wonderful. And I just had this, like, it was very mental for me. And maybe I would push in too far, or I wasn't actually listening or communicating or dancing. It's that like gremlin energy, just like, it's very like, it's just kind of, I think the main conditioning as men, what we have to break. So for me, that's like where I came from. And essentially what happened is, about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I met a woman who, from my perspective, was just way more conscious than I was. And we actually agreed to have like a 2-week relationship together. And I went to go live with her in these 2 weeks. And I very, very quickly discovered that I was like, I can't meet this woman where she wants to be met. And I'd never really had the sense of that. I'm like, she's asking me of something I've never really given. She doesn't want me to perform. She just wants me to be present with her and listen. And after about 10 days, we realized that, yeah, it just wasn't a fit. But that was where I first started reading about tantric sex for men, making love a meditation, a lot of these different principles. And so, yeah, it led me to 9 months of celibacy because I needed to completely like rewire my conditioning for this. And now there is a space that I feel like I'm operating from, which is probably number one, a better ability to hold tension. So like tension, the manipulation of tension, the use of tension, the dance of sexuality, and the building of it beginning kind of even outside the bedroom, and letting the charge, understanding the nature of like the energy charges in your body. That's like one component for me.
That's powerful. And so the first thing you said was taking out the goal, bringing in that intent, and being it a dance. You know, the ability to become co-creators and bring in like artistic tuning in elements into lovemaking and making it special and different every time versus very static and boring, right? And so I feel like there's something for everyone in sacred sexuality, you know, whether you want to heal, whether you want to explore your pleasure in sexuality, whether you want to explore your sexuality, right? A lot of people on spiritual journeys are exploring their, you know, who they like, what they like, because we're taking away the boundaries. Yeah.
Yes.
And so like pushing the edges too, you know, like emotional intimacy takes work between couples, because I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but most of the people are wounded. We're walking around with hurt and traumas and pain, and we are unable to open ourselves up with those walls, right? And I'm speaking for myself as well, because it's the work that I'm doing with myself. And so, yeah, I feel like as the spiritual evolution continues and people continue to awaken, we'll be able to really tap into our spirituality through sexuality and sacred unions, you know. And then from there, I talk frequently about this. From sacred union, the further intention is into conscious conception, and actually allowing pure spirits to come through with intention and devotion and ritual, right? Because there's a lot of procreation in this world that's very unconscious. And, you know, there's a lot of lost souls in this world. And so, yeah.
And that's almost getting into the realm of like, when we talk about like sex magic and manifestation. I mean, we literally have like the seed of creation in our bodies as men, and, you know, the ability to like channel that into something, which is why, yeah, I think it's important to have a distinction between like goal and destination and intention. And because I think they can get clouded. So yeah, you can come in with the intention to heal, but it's probably not wise to set the goal to heal, right? You simply, but that, and a lot of the intentions come from like the listening. And this may be kind of a side thread here, but a lot of where my listening has come in lately has actually a lot to do with where my partner is on her cycle. And so when I'm tuned in to like where she is, sometimes she's in a very like child innocence space, and what she needs is a safe, protective field to envelop her and help her feel like she can melt into the like depths of, you know, surrender. But then there are other times when I'm listening when there's something inside of her that is like very like evoking in that, like, I'm gonna eat you, like I'm about to devour you. And yeah, and then I'm like, whoa, that's not like, hi there, yes, let's feast. And so, you know, we can, sometimes the intention comes from the listening, and where, you know, I sense that she is.
Yeah, and I love that you've been pointing out your ability to tune into cycles. Part of conscious relationships and, you know, sacred sexuality too is to know her cycle, because women go through different archetypes every week, and new energy. And so part of this work is doing the work to learn, right? To read the books, to read the podcasts and articles, and, you know, study female psychology, female anatomy, like what's going on, you know. And it's like we have to do this flow to work together and understand. And so, yeah, I find myself noticing how my cycles flow, and actually being very intentional to not schedule anything around my like moon time, you know. And so during that time is when I want my Papa Bear energy. I want the hugs and the cuddles and like, don't touch me. And sometimes when I'm in that like vulnerable state and I do have a man with like a sexual desire, it's like very violating. It's like energetically violating, like I'm just so hurt, it's like very tender space. And so I feel if men can be a little more aware of what's going on for their women in different cycles, they can find a way to really relate to her and really find a way to love her the proper way during that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, hold on, this is flowing. And so when her ovulation comes in 2 weeks and you've been really nice and sweet to her and maybe giving her breast massage and foot massage, maybe during her ovulation is when she can like embody this energy of goddess and like ravish you, right? Because she'll be like nourished by your masculine essence. And so here we have that yin yang and flow of receiving and giving energy. And so, yeah, something that I actually recently learned about female menstruation is, so for women that have really powerful and painful menstrual cramps, it's something important to consider is what kind of man are you sleeping with and what kind of emotion you might be dumping inside of your womb during your so tuning into like the energetics of the realms, right? And so like the womb is a very sensitive space. And so if you're with a man who doesn't really devote or love you, who has a lot of struggles or pains and things he's like dealing with, and so when he's with you, he's releasing, penetration, that's release. Your womb is a receptive space, so you receive. And so you're not just receiving the physicality, but also his essence, right? And like his diet and what was he eating during that month and all that. And so that's where sacred sexuality is like, we're conscious of all those elements. Because if you had a shitty day and you're going to come and you're going to fuck your woman to get rid of your shitty day in 2 weeks during her PMS, all of that's going to fall right back on you through her emotional outbursts. So get it together. Drop the mic, right?
Yeah, boom. I love it. I mean, the pointing that out. The way that you describe like the first bit where it's like the nurturing and then it like comes back and like she ravishes me. That's been like my experience, and it's almost it's like I feel cheeky when I talk about it because it kind of feels like a secret thing that I can't believe that it took me this long to like figure this out, and that this type of like fluid dance of sexuality is just it's right here and available for us. So yeah, when I receive a lot of gratitude from her because I've done my best to hold her while she's in those like emotional ranges and the dynamic nature she gets in. But you're right, there does come a point where it's almost like a switch and she'll be like, it's like it gets digested. Mm-hmm. And then this like rebirth happens and she's like, I want nothing more than to blow you and worship you and caress you and nourish you. And what do you need? What do you want? Can I give you more? Do you want more? That's like the main, do you want more? Do you want more? And like, I'm sometimes like, yes, and then we play this dance out almost like on a macro cycle outside the bedroom. And then also, within we can do it as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. So if you were to give us a little like bullet point list of the things that you have figured out that you can share with our audience to take on their journey, what can you share?
The first thing is you need a reference point. So I really recommend, there's a book I first read, which was Tantric Sex for Men, Making Love a Meditation. Mm-hmm. The reference point here is helpful. I learned about kind of a necessity for someone to explore this with. The container needs to be very safe. There needs to be like a solid foundation for exploration, because I don't actually think that you're able to find this type of dance unless you have someone who's willing to find it with you. And we can very quickly dismiss like partners because they don't fit a sort of narrative we're looking for, when maybe there might be some sort of healing that can take place between the two of you with sacred sexuality. So like cultivating the foundation of safety for exploration. And then I would say that another point would be to incorporate like solo practices to start to get a sense of your field. So I don't say that everyone needs to go 9 months celibate. That's just what worked for me. But understanding the cycle of, especially as men, like we've got some cycles too. We have seasons as well, and we have a field that we can cultivate. And if you're listening, you know, when we want to release or ejaculate, like what is that? Exactly. Like where's that need coming from? Are we feeling pressure? Like it's like an overall slowness is what I would put on that bullet point. Be slower and practice on yourself. Just take your time. It's worth the work, but you need reference points, you need practice partners, and you need a lot of safety to do it.
Yeah. And I love that you said checking in with yourself every time you want to, you know, my clients is semen retention and why are we doing it? You know, understanding the essence of what is your semen, what energy does it take to produce it, and where are you spilling it, or in whom are you spilling it, right? So yeah, those are all those sacred sexuality elements that are kind of seeping into our collective consciousness right now. And people all over the globe are picking it up. You know, we're all sharing our perspectives and our experiences, but this is like, it's sinking deeper and deeper. And yeah, I love following Zach and his journey with his partner as they've been laying the foundation for conscious relationships. And what I love, another aspect of your relationship is having agreements, you know, and actually like being really clear with each other, like what are we agreeing to? Because how often do people go into relationships expecting things to be a certain way without having the other person to agree to that? And so we have a lot of expectations, you know, that kind of set us back because we're not in reality. We're like in this daydream space. Do you have anything you would like to share on that?
Yeah. Well, what you're referencing is this model I created about like healthy conscious relationship dynamics. And I think maybe the thing I'll share about the agreements portion is that, you know, there's like different tiers of either conscious or unconscious agreements that we make in relationships. And I think it's important to, when you take a look at your relationships and the agreements you want to make, to have them be as conscious as possible. Because we can all think of a time where we've been with someone and gone, why am I with this person again? And all of a sudden what that means is that you've unconsciously agreed to something. You've agreed to something, you don't even know what it is. And we can make a lot of these like unconscious agreements with ourselves too, when we don't know why we're doing something, but we're still doing it. Like we've lost touch with that. So yeah, it's important to have the framework of agreements and relationships, but to like allow that same sort of like tantric approach. Like tantra to me is like, it's a lifestyle approach rather than just something you do in the bedroom. Like even some of the recent success I've had in my business has become because I've been doing it more slow, more intentionally. Proposal, statement of work, lengthy negotiation times, like taking my time, listening to the energy, communicating in this way. And so in the same way with like building any relationship, you can even start the tantric approach immediately with you know, how you want to approach agreements, because sometimes the masculine is calling for that structure, and it's wise to bring some of it in.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's a new space. And after attending ISTA last year, I feel like boundaries, desires, wants, needs, consents, like all of that are conversations that are to be had early on in relationships. You know, especially if you're tuning into sacred sexuality, like talking about sex before you have sex is like kind of the key. You know, like what are you into? What do you hate? Like, have you had any trauma or abuse? Like anything I should know? And I feel like for a lot of men right now, there is a shift, like, the masculine mindset of how to approach women. Whereas before it was just like, I can take it because it's here. And, you know, she's like, kind of like, I can take it. you know, and like, no, the fuck you can't, right? And like, for we have to learn how to say no. Like, I was sharing, like, I love to be able to say, like, this is a fuck yes, and like, be super excited about it, right? And then something is like, it's like, and I'm unsure feeling, but I've learned if it's unsure, it's a fuck no. You know, if it's a yes, like, you always feel it in your body. And so, perhaps for men also to start tuning into your fuck yes, whether you even should be having intimate relationship with this woman, you know, for perhaps like letting your heart decide rather than your cock decide, you know, because he might have direction that is not best for your heart or for your energy field. And I'm going on a rant, but this is really important. So sexuality is really, really powerful. And when you engage with men that you're not intending to hold emotionally, give them aftercare. You know, aftercare is another aspect of conscious sexuality.
Mm.
Not willing to give her a phone call in the morning, text her, take her to breakfast, you know, check in, like, hey, are we gonna future connect or not? Like, am I gonna talk to you again? Like, if you leave her hanging after sex, like, she's gonna like emotionally like create a lot of, I just call it kind of like that's like unfinished business, right? And so think about all the unfinished business that you might be carrying, all the women that you've dumped your to, you know, you didn't have a clear ending with, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was.
Yes. Well, and the key thing that I am hearing there is I want to shine the biggest light on this emotional responsibility piece, because I really think that that is one of the main indicators of like commitment in a relationship. And before you even like get to the like definitions page where you're like, are we boyfriend, girlfriend? Are we partners? Are we going to get married? Like, what is the underlying all of that, and the root of that for me is how much emotional responsibility that you're willing to take for the other person. Because if I were to give my rant, too much in the spiritual community right now, do I think that we are pushing individual, like, it's your story, you know, oh, this is your work, this is your responsibility, your work, like, oh, I triggered you, well, it looks like you have some work to do. Like, that is a lot of the way that I've seen some relationships operate and some relationships disintegrate. And while that is true for on some like level, that yes, our work is our own, our emotional experience is our own, you're taking on some of that weight when you decide that you're going to be exchanging energy with someone. So it's really important to have the space for that. And if you don't, to have the nads to communicate that to a woman that you're with. Because even telling her I don't have space for this thing you're looking for, I've realized I'm not going to be able to meet you here. Is there still anything you'd like to exchange with me given that info?
Yeah. I mean,
and
she'll have a choice. Like, there'll be an intentional choice there.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that whole segment was really powerful, very spot on. Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah.
thinking in this way, tapping into really deep stuff, you know, and it takes a lot of maturity to get there, you know, to sacrifice the easy, fast, desire, lust driven dynamics to deepen into something that can be profound and really help you evolve to a level. And so that's why for me, it's like, it's really essential to find a partner who can meet me there. And I think that's the reason why we even wanted to do this video chat today, is because we were on the phone earlier today talking about how I've been having a hard time finding men to meet me spiritually and sexually and financially too, to co-create a relationship with. And so yeah, we wanted to kind of speak into that and kind of see what's going on the masculine side, because I know Zach is doing some men's circles and shadow work, integration work. And so I'm kind of curious to hear what's going on with the men that this is what's happening.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, so I would say one of the pulses right now. Oh, this is so good. This is a juicy one. I love this. A lot of men are recognizing right now that it's been all wrong. They're just starting to realize this. I have not been connecting with women in a way that has been good for me, good for them, good for the whole, good for, God, however you want to say it. And yeah, there's two men specifically right now that are like beginning the exploration phase of attempting to connect with women in this new way. And with one of them in particular, there's a deep struggle of the emotional responsibility component and trying to do your best, but receiving like a ton of negative feedback. And so I know that for him, it's really hard. And in some ways, I think men want to give up because we're like, why would we do our best just to be thrown down a hill the very first time we mess up? Where's the benefit of the doubt? Where's the trust? Where's the leeway? And so, yeah, I know that men are struggling with that, but still aiming at it. And there's kind of like two sides of the spectrum, maybe like a light and a dark side that I think men are exploring right now, where you kind of either have men who have been afraid to step into that powerful masculine energy and, get into that, like dominating and power sense, like have a playful way to mobilize that energy. And that's like one end, but then you also have the man who has maybe overstimulated himself like in his 20s, and now as he approaches his 30s, he's like, I can only attract low quality, unconscious, bipolar women, right? Is like another thing I've heard. So there's definitely a lot of confusion, but some of the messages in here will help you sift, I think, through that. But we're trying. It's almost sounds ridiculous, but that's like the message for men. We're trying. I'm sorry, but we're trying. And really, we're struggling, but it's just so important to keep going.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And I think from the feminine perspective, when it comes to communication, a lot of women don't really know how to communicate well, and they're not in charge of their emotions. So chasing each other's tail because hearing it. And so for women, I would say it would be important to master your emotions and to not fall in love with every guy you sleep with, and to not text and be crazy and wild, but like handle your shit, basically, right? And to also be independent enough to have a life to not rely on that masculine energy when you're needy, because I'm totally like guilty of that. And so it's also work for us to learn to like tune into that harmonious vocal frequency. So I actually had a guy tell me like he really likes my voice, and like when I talk to him about a problem that I'm having, I speak in a way that's able to understand and hear me, like he can actually listen versus like and being really high pitched. So for women, like part of being conscious is choosing like, okay, I can really scream and freak out right now, or you can take a breath and try to really speak to him in a way that he can actually listen, from a tone of voice that he can actually pleasantly intake. So yeah, and just learning communication skills. I think that's for both, for men and women, to learn how to express your truth from a place of love, honoring what's going on for you,
Yes. The masculine component I would offer to that is that like when a woman is being emotionally disruptive and like it feels painful, like you're going to have to train into finding the way to not taking that personally. Because very, very often is this her communicating? It's just coming from the body space and not the mental space. And so like the language there is just as relevant, and if not more potent sometimes. And so we've got to stop taking like a woman's emotional expression as like value judgments or as marks against our character, because we're going to mess up. Things are going to go intense or wrong or awry or whatever. And she's going to get upset with you, or just upset in general. And just because she's expressing a negative emotion, it doesn't mean that you need to change your whole frame of reality just to fit her range.
Mm-hmm.
And you're holding firm will do more for her safety, more for the sexual polarity, and more for the future longevity and health of the relationship than any sort of crumbling or accommodating you might do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's an aspect to some men being either avoidant, just like walking out of the room, or being too accommodating. Yeah, I know. So sometimes I think being too accommodating perpetuates her behavior in that way. Because if you train her to always accommodate her, then she might sit on your neck at some point, right? And so it's a tender balance. And speaking of like being able to witness her and her emotional states and hold yourself firm, it's like that like steady masculine energy, and like even holding space for her, sending her love in that moment. So little practices we can incorporate.
Yeah. It's one of the best things you can learn as a man, on this path is how to like hold space for women and also how to communicate where and when you can hold space. Because the expectation part is like well loved by women. When you say, hey, I realizing I can't hold this right now, but give me 20 minutes and I would love to come back to this with you, or like just commanding it. Allow yourself to be able to command what's in front of you just a little bit. It's like commanding and dominating don't have the same energy, but you can be precise. You can speak your needs without having to go into whatever weird dynamic, unhealthy dynamic we tend to. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Just words of encouragement. Just if this isn't something you're familiar with, check it out. Making Love a Meditation, Tantric Sex for Men. Men's work specifically there. And, there's a community of people that want to operate in a more conscious way. There are men out there on the path. There are women out there on the path. Just keep doing the work, keep connecting, keeping communicative and conscious, and yeah, they'll show up.
Yes, 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 in divine timing. And until then, self-love and self-care of sacred self-pleasure. So I think we might actually need a chat on pleasure from the masculine and feminine, but again, that might need to be another time. All right, you guys. So this feels good?
It does. Yeah. And I am charged for more of these. So we should make a little series and do these.
I love it. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in tonight with me and Zach. It's been so good to have your essence here. Leave us a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. And you guys can find Zach on his Instagram. What is it?
At @fully_aligned.
Wonderful. That. All right, my loves. Much, much love to each and every one of you. Until next time. All right. Bye.
Much love, Allie. Bye.